Shop President's Day savings at the Home Depot with up to 40% off select appliances like Whirlpool that can keep up with your busy routine. The Home Depot has Whirlpool laundry appliances with Fan Fresh. This feature fans and tumbles your laundry after it's done to help keep your clothes fresh until you're ready to grab them. Shop President's Day savings now and get up to 40% off. Plus, free delivery on select appliances at the Home Depot. How doers get more done. Free delivery on appliance purchases of $1,498 or more. Offer valid February 5th through the 25th, U.S. only. See store online for details.
From LAist and APM, American Public Media, it's This Old House Radio Hour. I'm Jen Lardis. Have you heard about house burping? We asked a building scientist if it actually works or if it's just hot air.
First, know what's in the air in your home. If you're not measuring it, you have no idea what you're dealing with.
Actor, comedian, and carpenter Nick Offerman returns to the Illinois farmhouse where he first put on his tool belt.
That was the first thing I remember feeling like I actually contributed with my dad. Like the two of us did it together, and I was like, all right.
What do you do if your contractor doesn't pull the permits? We'll tell you what to do next. All of this, plus we're answering your home improvement questions at 877-864-7460. That's 877-864-7460. Coming up right after the news. It's This Old House Radio Hour. I'm Jen Lardis. If you've been online lately or watching morning television, you may have heard about house burping. It's the idea, borrowed from a German practice known as Lüften, that opening your windows even in winter can flush out what's built up inside your home and make it healthier. But does it actually work? Host of PBS's Home Diagnosis, Corbett Lunsford, joins us to break down whether burping is good building science or just a bunch of hot air. So, Corbett, do you burp your home?
My home is actually set up for continuous burping, which is the right way to do it. It's the most consistent way. If you are doing it just sporadically, there's some interesting side effects to it. But yes, I do burp my home, if you want to put it that way.
And what does it mean to burp a home?
It just seems like it's a marketing for opening your windows, which is not a bad way to do things. But I think that if you feel like you have to do that, then it points to something being wrong. And I don't think anybody who does what I do within home performance or building science or whatever you want to call it would call that a permanent solution. It's normally kind of considered a Band-Aid.
And you say when you feel like you have to open the windows and sort of air out, are there any signs you can sort of point to that say that you have stale air in your home and this is something you should do?
Sure. I mean, one of the most obvious and most sophisticated, actually, is your own nose. But there's some downsides to that because, of course, you get used to smells after 15 minutes or so. Your body kind of says, okay, I'm going to stop paying attention to that so I can pay attention to other threats that might be around. There's things in your home that are odorless and tasteless, and you would never know are there. For example, carbon monoxide or radon or carbon dioxide. And so those things might be hanging out in your home, and you might be feeling some ill effects from them. Opening your window does the trick. But if it's carbon monoxide, opening the window is not the solution. The solution is let's find what is creating the problem and get rid of it.
Yeah, I'm wondering if opening all of your windows, especially when it's cold outside, can that actually affect the health of your home?
It's not a bad thing to do. There is a really interesting long-term indoor air quality experiment called the Chemistry of Indoor Environments, CIE. It was 10 years long, and it turns out that like when you're talking about, for example, wildfire smoke, if a house gets infected with smoke, which is kind of an extreme version of this, like the house staleness or whatever it is that we're trying to get rid of, they started air cleaning, meaning cycling the air through like HEPA filters or carbon filters or something like that could actually capture some of the pollutants in the air. That was great. They could bring the pollutants way down. But then as soon as they turned it off, or in this case, as soon as you close your window, it spikes right back up again. And that is because the physics of what's happening is one layer, but there's two other layers that we have not paid attention to classically in building science. There's chemistry and there's microbiology. And the chemistry side of this is that the surfaces in your home, like furniture, clothing, curtains, rugs, drywall, the surface of glass, things like that, retain, it's called adsorption and absorption, where the chemicals can get onto and even into the drywall, for example, and start doing chemical reactions, which means that they're making new chemicals that were not there to begin with inside of the drywall. And so the stuff in your house becomes a reservoir, or if you think of it this way, a battery that can recharge your house with all the goodness that's inside of it, which might not be that good.
Let's say you do live in an older house that breathes and is maybe not properly ventilated. Are there any issues with burping a home like that?
Yeah, you want to start to think about the kind of situation that you're in. So let's take like 3 scenarios. We've got the coldest day of the year. And you wake up and you go outside to get the trash can or whatever. You come back inside and you're like, oh man, it stinks in here. I didn't notice because I've been sleeping in it all night. But after I breathed that fresh air outside and I came back in, we need to air this place out. So you're going to get this huge slug of dry air, cold air that then is going to need to be heated back up. Also, it's coming into just the one area where you've opened the window. Also, what floor it's on. So like, let's take, for an extreme example, a 4-story townhouse in like an urban setting. If you go up to the top floor where your bedroom is and you open up that window, because warm air rises, which is called stack effect, what happens when you open that window is not that any air will come into your bedroom. Air leaves the top floor of a house that's under that stack effect because air is trying desperately to get out. There's literally more air in the top of the building than in the bottom. So you're letting air out, at which point the house breathes in through the bottom, which is the lowest pressure point. So let's take another example in the same house, hottest day of the year. You open up the window in your bedroom, you let in a huge slug of both hot air and also humidity. Normally, if it's in a room like a bedroom, it's going to go into all the soft stuff in the room, the curtains, the rugs, etc. And then do that battery thing where even when you dry the air in the room, it'll then re-emanate this humidity into the room. And so that might kind of be a longer lasting curve on your humidity in the house. But if you have a 70-degree day where the sun is not shining, it's a cloudy 70-degree day, no wind, and you open the window anywhere in that house, you might get actually 0 actual air coming into the house. And that's why opening windows, along with we're not filtering the air, we're not processing the air, we're not mixing it, it's coming into one centralized location, becomes a problem. And that's why this continual burping, if we're calling it burping, or what we call dilution air, or what some people call classically ventilation, is very important.
Aside from burping your home, are there other things that we should be thinking about?
Yeah, I'd say first, know what's in the air in your home. If you're not measuring it, you have no idea what you're dealing with. So, and then secondly, one of the worst things that can outcome from you tweaking little things in your home is mold. And we don't want that. And so the 2 things that we can do is keep the house clean and dry. Clean because mold has to have food. And one of its favorite foods is dust, which is basically pre-chewed building materials and pre-chewed skin flakes. Also, moisture. So if you have a dehumidifier, you're keeping that moisture down and we're able to control better for that. So clean and dry, very important. But like really, feel free to open your windows anytime you feel like it's necessary. It's not like it's not good for you unless there's a forest fire nearby. Again, it's not a long-term solution. I wouldn't call it like sweeping the nation kind of a thing.
Well, Corbett, thank you so much. We appreciate this information.
Absolutely, Jen. It was a pleasure talking with you.
That was Corbett Lunsford. For more home tips and solutions, go to his website, buildingperformanceworkshop.com. Right now, we're tackling your home improvement and DIY questions. Call us now at 877-864-7460. That's 877-864-7460. And we'll match you with the right expert. Or you can leave us a voicemail anytime. Hello, you're on This Old House Radio Hour.
Hey, this is Chris Ridgard from Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Hey, Chris, what's your question today?
My question is, I have a glass shower door in my shower, and I cannot seem to stop it from periodically leaking at the corners at the bottom.
Well, to help us out, we've got Zach Detmore, a general contractor for the show, here on the line.
All right.
So, Jen, have you ever had a glass door that leaks? Or better yet, have you ever had a glass door that doesn't leak?
I've never had one that doesn't leak, unfortunately.
That's what I thought you were going to say.
All right, well, I feel better already.
Question answered.
Yeah, I'm anxious to hear your advice, Zach. I've got this exact problem.
If you were going to bet your money on it, would you say it's leaking at the hinge or it's leaking at the base? And what 2 pieces are meeting together that you think is the weak point?
I think it's at the base. Somewhere in there where it all comes together, water is wicking through there and making its way out to the drywall and trim on the other side.
And it's happening while you're showering, right? Not like as you open the door, that it's not that drip tray at the bottom kind of emptying.
No, it happens. And the thing is, it happens seemingly not all the time, so every once in a while I'll come out and there'll be a pool of water that's just right in the corner, like a teaspoon or a tablespoon. And then sometimes I'll see nothing. So it's seemingly intermittent, but I don't know if there's always something that's kind of going into the wall.
Well, I think sometimes as you're showering, the direction of the shower water probably sometimes hits it, sometimes doesn't.
Do you have a family using this shower, or is this just Chris's shower?
Yeah, there are 3 of us that use it.
Is there someone you think is showering in an inappropriate manner in there?
By inappropriate, he means having like a splash party.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like I love my sister, but when growing up, when I would take a shower after her, I was like, what is going on? How is she, the floor is wet. Like,
this is my 8-year-old.
She's shaking off like a dog when she gets out of this thing.
I really wanted that to be the case, but there have been times where I've come out of the shower and I make an attempt to kind of not have the shower head pointed, in that direction. And every once in a while I'll come out and still see a little puddle and say, well, if I'm trying to, and there's still water that gets out there, I have no idea really how it's getting there.
So here's what I typically do when I'm stumped, because I can't hang around at homeowners' jobs and just wait for things to happen. So what I like to do is sometimes I'll use toilet paper. So I'll get everything dry, right? And then I'll like put little toilet paper traps, because once toilet paper gets wet, it sort of crinkles up, right? So I would try and make these booby traps so at least you can sort of see what booby trap trips first, and then you can follow the path of water, and hopefully that'll lead you to the source, because anything I'm going to tell you right now is somewhat speculative. Water sometimes will run across flat surfaces because of surface tension, and it's not moving in a way that you may have thought. The water could be traveling from a totally different area or running through a screw, and you just have to seal up the screw somewhere. So I think that's what I would do, if that makes sense, is sort of tape toilet paper in areas and then shower like crazy, try and trip this thing off and start working your way towards the problem. And remember, the goal is to get the water to run into the shower. So that means probably your only real tool is either adding some wedges to sort of lift things up so they're tilted more inwards, or adding more sealant to make sure water doesn't get to where it's going. So I see this all the time where I think I have a plumbing leak on my hand, and it's actually a leak in a silicone that's causing water to run behind the tile, pop out somewhere, and you can get, water does funny things.
Okay. Yeah, I think I've been focusing just on the corner, and I think you're right. I need to probably expand my view and think about other paths that the water might be traveling that I hadn't thought about. So I think there are a couple other places I can look and try and set some traps, as you say. So.
And I'll tell you this, just even though we're completely out of time, I've got a client who, whenever they turn their shower head on, water gushes out of the gap between their shower pan and the wall. And what is actually causing that is the sealant I put on their shower bench peeled away from the marble. So water is hitting the bench, running in the gap, then running behind the tile and popping out 4 feet away between the pan and the wall. So it could be something different than you think it is.
Okay, well, good. I'll take a broader look.
All right, good luck with it.
All right, thank you guys very much.
Coming up, we answer more of your home improvement and DIY questions. Call us at 877-864-7460. That's 877-864-7460. It's This Old House Radio Hour. Today's episode is supported by Quo, spelled Quo, the modern alternative to run your business communications. Quo understands just how much the basic stuff matters, like how you should talk to customers and keep your team on the same page. Their cleaner, more modern setup can make everything feel smoother and bring the level up mindset to your business. Quo allows your entire team to handle calls and texts from one shared number, so there's no more missed messages or disconnected conversations. Since everyone sees the full thread, replies are faster and customers feel genuinely cared for. Make this the year where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free. Plus, get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/thisoldhouse. That's QUO.com/thisoldhouse. Quo. No missed calls, no missed customers. You're listening to This Old House Radio Hour. I'm Jen Largis. Right now, we're tackling your home improvement and DIY questions. Call us now at 877-864-7460. That's 877-864-7460. And we'll match you with the right expert. Or you can leave us a voicemail anytime. Hello, you're on This Old House Radio Hour.
Hi, Jen. This is Joe Bell calling from Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Hi, Joe. What's your question today?
Well, my husband and I have been talking for quite some time about the possibility of converting our traditional wood-burning fireplace into either a gas or an electric insert that would be automatic and, all the convenience and energy-saving benefits that go along with that kind of a conversion. And I've heard about strengths and weaknesses of both the gas and the electric approach.
Absolutely. Well, to help answer your question, we have Mark McCullough, the mason for the show, and Zach Detmore, general contractor for the show, both here to help. Zach, have you ever switched a fireplace from traditional wood burning over to gas?
I have, and I think Joe here is asking all the right questions. One thing I love to have clients who are curious about not only the aesthetics, but the environmental impacts and the comfort impacts and sort of understanding the full arc of what's available to them before rushing into anything. And I think it really comes down to how she's going to use the appliance, because I see a lot of people who have sort of these appliances in their house, and if they're never ever used, then maybe you should be prioritizing how much it costs and how good it looks over how much heat it puts out or the convenience of it.
Well, you don't know how much you're going to use it until it's convenient.
Fair enough. What do you think, Mark?
So, Zach, I love every single point you just made. I have to admit that I am a wood-burning fireplace type of guy for obvious reasons. To me, it's an art form. It's very prevalent these days to replace an old wood-burning fireplace with, again, an electric unit, a wood-burning unit, or a gas unit.
If she's set on moving to something that's a little more convenient, whether it's gas or electric, do you have any way of sort of helping her understand the pros and cons of those two options?
Sure. She's already ahead of the game because she has gas in the house. So, Joe, that's a good thing. The hookup is very easy, and the install is very easy. The electrical unit is basically just as easy or maybe easier. You have to get an electrician to give you a source of electricity. That's usually hidden in the back of this, electric unit. The heat can be regulated, so it's convenient in that way. But to me, electric and gas, when you add up all the pros and cons, are really a very similar unit.
They throw the same amount of heat?
It just depends on the unit, exactly.
Okay.
So that's why I say they're kind of the same to me, because, again, the end goal for people is usually to supplement the cost of whatever heating fuel they're using. I worry about the ambiance, to be honest.
With the electric?
Well, I like grabbing wood out of the backyard, bringing it in, and again, just kind of making
We're not
that.
going to sway, Mark.
Yeah, no, you won't. But again, being progressive, I do see people love the convenience of just throwing a switch and now your unit is operating. Again, some people actually consider that ambiance. I don't. You'll never convince me, but to each his own.
I have to admit, I'm kind of wrestling with my guilt feelings after listening to both of you talk about how much nicer it is to haul the wood and build the fire. But my guess is the two of you don't have to clean up after it. I'll just say that.
No, I'll be honest. That to me, that's part of the system. I do not mind cleaning up.
Do you live in Minneapolis?
Okay, now, all right, I get that.
I think what I've gotten from Mark, it might be helpful to go to a showroom if you can and see these things in action, because it's really the aesthetics and the amount of heat that's putting off that might sway you one way or the other. So I would see if possible to go and see these units installed and see how you like them. And I think that, in part with us pressuring you to stick with wood, you'll find the right choice.
Joe, I'll stick with you. We heated our home in Massachusetts with a wood stove, and you do become a slave to the stove after a while. It is tricky and it's a lot of work. I feel you.
Yeah. I thank you for this advice.
Thank you, Joe.
Have a great day.
You as well.
Thanks, Joe. Bye-bye.
Call us now to have your home improvement or DIY question answered. 877-864-7460. That's 877-864-7460. Or leave us a voicemail anytime. Hello, you're on This Old House Radio Hour.
Hey, Jen, this is Christopher Alice. I live in Los Angeles, California.
Hi, Christopher. What's your question today?
Well, I live in an apartment, obviously, and since I'm in Los Angeles, there are earthquakes and things like that. So the big question that I have is about wall anchors, because I've got a lot of art and instruments, and I don't want them crashing to the ground whenever the earth starts to shake. So,
Of course. Well, we've got Zach Detmore, general contractor for the show, here on the line to help us out.
Awesome.
Hey, this is a cool question. So what do you think these walls in your place are made out of?
They're definitely made out of drywall, but and I have used a stud finder in the past, but not really a consistent number of studs and regular placement. So since I can't rely on that, I know I need to go into the drywall. So I'm just trying to figure out, none of the artwork or the instruments are that heavy. Like everything is sub 15 pounds.
Right. You're not hanging a piano on the wall.
Not today.
Not yet. Not yet.
Anyway, I love to play my baby grand laying on my back under the piano, and it's mounted vertically.
Yeah, there's always a chance.
Yeah. And then you can open it and play it like a harp.
Yeah, that's more. It's more performance piece at that point for sure. So
right.
Yeah,
the instrument is the art. Well, it's been great talking with you.
And you guys as well. Perfect.
I think we're about to kick off boldly into the confusing world of drywall anchors. You know what I'm talking about, Jen? Like there's 1,000 different ones.
They take up the whole aisle at the home center.
Yeah.
How do you know what to pick?
They do.
There's huge money in that. And I feel like everyone's got their go-to. I've got mine, but I want to hear what Jen's is first.
I don't know. I always look at the weight rating as I go through and I try to just pick the highest one. It doesn't matter what I'm hanging. I want the strongest, highest pound rating. It doesn't matter if I'm hanging a piece of paper.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. So the boxes do have a rating. And I think it's fair to say there's a downward force rating and a pull-out rating. And I think if you're hanging artwork, you're really only concerned about the downward force rating versus if you were going to hang a guitar, right. The guitar neck is sort of sticking beyond the wall enough that there's a force pulling down that makes that anchor sort of want to, twist in the drywall in the downward location. So I would say think about those forces and that drywall being a fulcrum, and then you can kind of pick and choose, because the higher the weight rating, typically the larger a hole you're going to put in your drywall and the larger the cleanup will be if this is a rental or you decide to move art around. But
right.
My personal favorite is called like a snap toggle bolt. So basically there's these two plastic pieces that connect to a metal anchor. And so you sort of point the thing, you have to drill like a 3/8 of an inch or a 1/2 inch hole, and you poke this through, and then you slide the two plastic pieces, which sort of flip that anchor into the up so it's sitting flat to the inside of the wall. And then you put a bolt in, and then you hang, whatever sort of hardware off that bolt, or you could thread it straight in. But they're incredibly strong, and they're going to be fit for purpose for pretty much anything if you have something that you're really concerned about it falling. So that'd be my big, strong earthquake solution.
Sounds like you could do a pull-up off of it.
Well, then that's great. Then I can get rid of my gym membership too. That'd be perfect.
That's perfect. I was going to say, you sound like you're pretty fit.
Would that toggle bolt snap toggle thing also work for if you wanted to secure like bookcases or things of that nature as well? Or would you recommend something different for that application?
It will work for bookcases. I think where you get into trouble is sort of like when you think of that load like a floating shelf, right? And a floating shelf is putting a tremendous amount of force on that fastener to be pulled through the drywall. But if we're talking about, anchoring a bookshelf to the wall for tip protection, it'll totally be up to task, because there's that pull-out rating on it. So it might say it could take 150 pounds down and 50 pounds pull-out. And, that's a pretty robust weight rating, and you can always use more than one if you want to double it up for something like that. So I think it's great for pretty much anything. It's just you have that half-inch hole in the wall when you're done.
We got a shoe rack for the kids, and it kind of pulls open so they yank on it. And it came with L brackets to secure it. Like just underneath the top of it, it has the L bracket goes in, and then it goes up against the wall. And it's the most secure thing. I mean, the kids yank on it and pull on it. And I don't think it's ever going to go anywhere. I would imagine it could withstand anything. So maybe an L bracket is an option too for a bookshelf or something that's a little more, like a furniture piece like that.
Yeah, that's a good call. And you could thread right through the bracket into this toggle bolt.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So I think you need to go in there like, Valentine's Day chocolate, like I'll have a couple of these and a couple of those. And then you have this arsenal of different anchors, and then you have the right one. Maybe you're going to spend $50 or $60 in the first place, but then you have all the different fasteners you need. And when you decide to make a repair in the wall, it's pretty much the same amount of work to fix, a 3/8 inch hole as it is to fix a small hole. So you're just going to get something called setting mud, which is basically a powder that you mix water into. And that's perfect for those large holes because it's not going to set because of evaporation. It's going to have a chemical set to it. And that is going to allow you to make that repair really quickly, and it's going to set up really hard. So you're good to go.
Beautiful. That sounds great.
Well, thank you so much for calling. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks you guys as well. I really, really enjoy the show.
Oh, thank you so much.
Right now, we're tackling your home improvement and DIY questions. Call us now at 877-864-7460. That's 877-864-7460. And we'll match you with the right expert. Or you can leave us a voicemail anytime. Hello, you're on This Old House Radio Hour.
Hi, my name is Alex Sklansky, and I'm calling from Madison, Wisconsin.
Hey, Alex, what's your question today?
Yeah, my question is related to lighting. I have a super fun, cute, active toddler who is going to need more space to roam in my house than just the first floor of my little ranch house. And I'm setting out the downstairs rec room to be a playroom. And I've gotten everything almost ready, but I need to move my small, tool area to the, really scary, unfinished, full of bug area of my basement. And I just need to figure out a way to get better lighting in the basement so that I, one, can see what I'm doing, and two, don't run out of it in fear and don't want to go back.
As someone who's personally done this, I have some ideas. But we also have Zach Detmore, a general contractor for the show, and Heath Eastman, our electrician for the show, here to help us out.
How are you, Alex?
Very good.
Hey, Alex.
Question. So are you looking more for the new tool area or for the remodeling area where the playroom's going to be?
New tool area.
Okay, so it's kind of an unfinished basement with your floor joists exposed on the ceiling and and concrete. Okay. What do you have there now?
I have one light socket in the middle of that whole area and one fluorescent light plugged into one of two of all of the light sockets in that area.
And that fluorescent probably doesn't do much, huh?
No.
One of the best ways.
Far.
Yeah, for a shop area and for a bench, and Zach, you can jump in and tell me what you think, because I'm sure you deal with this quite a bit. I prefer to have LED strips over the bench areas. It's just super bright, takes away from the shadows, does a great job while not using much energy. And they do make it, plug-in versions that are a quick, easy install if you already have something that's plugging into a receptacle or is controlled by a switch. Are we looking more for the bench, or are you looking for general lighting as well?
I think kind of general lighting,
Sure.
But I mean, if I can buy LED strips to go throughout the basement area, then that would be great. As long as I can kind of use a power strip, right, to plug them all in, since I really only have one or two workable electric sockets there.
You know you're killing me when you're saying that, right? I have to say no to that. So you could do a couple of versions. If you think you're going to add them throughout a good size of the basement, and you want to add a few of them, I would say hardwire them. Hardwiring is an option if you want to do that and have them controlled by a switch. And if you're not comfortable doing that, it's not a big deal for an electrician to do that in an open basement. It's pretty quick and easy. The lights are very low profile. You have a lot of choices on color and how strong they are. So I don't think it's too bad of a project if it's an open basement.
Yeah, especially if you're going to make this your workshop area, it might be worth calling in someone just to give you a couple more outlets too, since you're going to need to plug in your tools and you don't want to be tripping that breaker every time you turn on your Microsoft.
I do.
Or something.
I trip it.
Yeah, I was going to say, is that coming from experience, Jen?
Yes, it is. 100%.
Yeah, we've all done that. Yeah, it's a great point to have some dedicated receptacles for a couple of your tools and straighten those lights out. And again, if it's an open basement and you have easy access to the electrical panel, I don't think it's too bad. And I think you're going to be much happier in the long run if you're using that for a shop.
I have a 200 amp panel, and it's already been twinned once for my recent switch from gas to electric oven. Would an electrician be willing to do like another twinning to set that up for me?
When you say twinning, you mean installing a small like tandem breaker in there?
That's what it looks like, and that's the term that they used.
Okay, yeah. So when we're referring to twinning, they're talking about taking out one breaker, like one single size breaker, and installing a breaker that has two smaller handles on it, correct? Is that what they did?
Yeah.
Okay. So that is possible, but the caveat to it is the panel has to be rated for it. So a lot of older panels that are 200s may not have been. And you can tell by looking at the label inside of the panel cover. And if that's not clear, you need to call an electrician to take the cover off, and they can look at the bus bar and tell you, because usually the bus bar will have a small notch in it that shows that it's rated to accept those tandem breakers. Now, it's still not a big deal if they're not. You can simply add a sub panel next to it. So you can take a couple of circuits out of that existing panel, move them over to a sub panel, and give yourself a little more space to add. Especially with a 200, you should have plenty of power unless you have something really crazy going on in the house.
Oh, no.
This is a typical conversation with any contractor, right? He's like, hey, I want one light. Yeah, why don't we give you some outlets, maybe a sub panel, heated floor, jacuzzi.
Listen, we already have the walls open. While we're here, let's just go ahead. For something for short term, quick and easy, a plug-in LED strip would be great to get you by. But to set up the shop, I'd say addressing those couple of the things. And again, it really shouldn't be that big of a deal from the sounds of it. I think you'd be much happier.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, everyone, for your help. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks. Good luck with the shop.
Take care.
If you have a question for us, leave us a voicemail on our hotline, 877-864-7460, and we can answer your question next time. Coming up, Nick Offerman shows us his old house.
Our friend Mr. Hart is going to tear down his house. In exchange for building some cabinets, he will give me this house if I can get it out of here.
That's next on This Old House Radio Hour. Welcome back to This Old House Radio Hour. I'm Jen Largis. Coming up, building permits and the questions you should ask your contractor before it's too late. But first, we go to Minooka, Illinois, where Nick Offerman watched his father build nearly everything in their farmhouse, from the furniture to the kitchen cabinets.
Hello, I'm Nick Offerman. I'm an actor, writer, and a woodworker, and this is my old house. I was 5 years old when my dad moved our house 3 miles down the road out in the cornfields. I was the perfect age to just have my eyes completely dazzled with wonder. Seeing a big old house drive down the road is pretty crazy. Of course, I begged my mom and dad to let me ride in it, but they said no. My dad said, well, our friend Mr. Hart is going to tear down his house. In exchange for building some cabinets, he will give me this house if I can get it out of here. So, for a feat that most people would just laugh at, my dad said, well, if I roll up my sleeves and get my hands dirty, I can have this incredible house that's way over my pay grade. My favorite memory is this big piece of cornfield where they had dug out and poured the basement. And this is in the 70s, long before the laser level, to properly create the foundation and then roll the house in and pop it down on the basement is crazy. It's so heroic. Because of the excavation of the basement, there were big mounds of dirt that I got to play on, and so it was this crazy wonderland, seemingly just for me. You'd get off the school bus on a gravel road, and it was right in the middle of a 3-acre plot, and so it was set pretty far back from the road, and it had that solitary monolithic appearance like in an Andrew Wyeth painting. It was the perfect setting for me and my 3 siblings to go excitedly running up the driveway. It was very classic. When you think a 2-story farmhouse, it had a wonderful, charming sense of history to it, of a humble, rural childhood in the 70s. Like so many houses in my memory from my town of Minooka, traditionally the front door was seldom used because it led into something more formal. Ours led into the dining room. So coming in the front door, we'd be in the dining room and we would hear off to the right the action of the house taking place in the kitchen. Probably smell something cooking. And Mom was just fantastic at cooking on a budget for a family of 6. She and my dad would also bake bread every Sunday. In this day and age, with all the hustle and bustle, it's become so rare for families to sit down to dinner together. I just think it was such a powerful lesson to me that if you just slow down and shut off all the distractions with a little bit of flour and yeast and water, you can have something come out of the oven that you can put butter on that's as glorious as anything you can get in Paris, France. This house, I don't know if it was maybe 100 years old. Even though it had survived a move down the road, it held together famously. It was built to last. That's a wonderful thing about using wood as your medium, is it has an organic flexibility to it. In the wind, in the incredible storms of the prairie, it would certainly bend and sway and give and buck and creak. If it was windy out, sometimes you would feel like you were in the hold of an old wooden schooner, battling a storm, passing around the Cape of Good Hope, perhaps, lying there trying to get to sleep. A house that you could almost imagine swaying in the wind a little bit, like a cattail. No AC. August was hot and humid. All the windows wide open with screens. It was all about fans and breeze, all the way to the depths of brutal, bitter winters, where we'd sometimes be under 12 feet of snow. We had really incredible winters there. We had a wood-burning stove in the living room. The couch faced the wood-burning stove like it was the TV, and the TV was over in the corner. When the winter would hit, we would hang blankets over doorways and reduce the heated portion of the house to as small an area as possible. And then when it's time for bed, you just bundle up and get under a few quilts. Mom was the next in a long tradition of ladies making incredible quilts, so we were well covered. My dad is the kind of guy who, any house like that, within the first few years, he had pulled all the trim, stripped it, refinished it, and even took apart a lot of the casement window parts. I was like, there's so many parts, seeing how the window weights worked with the pulleys and everything. Mom also is a seamstress, so she made clothes for us, but she also made curtains and linens for the house. And so they really put a lot of effort into a classic country farmhouse. I helped Dad as much as I could. We built a grape arbor. And then around high school, he and I built a small barn that was big enough to house the riding mowers, and it had a loft in it. That was the first thing I remember feeling like I actually contributed with my dad, like the two of us did it together. Everything up until that, I was his kid helping him. But that one, I had come into a little bit of muscle. I remember Dad looking at me and doing that thing where you shake hands, but then you keep holding, and the dad feels the strength of your arm. And I was like, all right. When I close my eyes to think about what image comes to me from that house, it goes into kind of a split screen. One is just the house. It was blue, but then it was also red, because every few years we would scrape it and paint it. It was like an ongoing thing with scaffolding and all the kids scraping and painting. The other half of the split screen is the kitchen table. That's just the epicenter. We learned to cook. That's where we took our sustenance, 2 or 3 meals a day. And that's where we sat down as a family together, for better or worse, every night. And the value of that, it's the greatest thing that happened in that house. I'm 55, and I'm lucky enough I still got my mom and dad. They've been so heroic to me my whole life, because with hard work and frugality and understanding the values of a work ethic, they took this house, and they were homesteaders. I always say it was like Little House on the Prairie in the 70s, because our mom and dad instilled those values in us to pay attention to each other, that keeping up with our family and doing things for each other was more important than anything else out in the world. And that's proven to be true.
That was Nick Offerman. His new book, Little Woodchucks, Offerman Woodshop's Guide to Tools and Tomfoolery, is out now from Dutton Books. Having a contractor in your home is one of the most vulnerable decisions you can make. You're letting someone into your space, and you're trusting them with your safety, your money, and this place that you live every day. But too often, homeowners assume the basics, like permits, are being handled until they find out they're not. So what happens when that trust breaks down? And what can you ask up front to protect yourself? We had a caller leave us this voicemail.
We just had a contractor do some work at our house, and getting them to pull the right permits was a real hassle. I'm sure other homeowners have been there too. We had heat pumps and a backup boiler installed by a highly rated HVAC company. The contract said they'd handle all necessary permits, but when the work started, the foreman didn't seem to know if they'd been pulled. After a few reminders, he claimed they'd pulled a boiler permit and said that's all they needed. I wasn't convinced, especially since they upgraded a circuit which seemed like it should require an electrical permit. At the end of the week, I checked the town's permit tracker, and no application had been filed. After some back and forth with the contractor, they admitted they hadn't submitted it yet, but claimed they had 5 days post-completion to do so. A few hours later, after I pushed, the permit finally appeared in the tracker. Do you have any tips for homeowners to ensure contractors follow through and avoid these headaches?
So, Zach, different municipalities, cities, and states all have different laws and regulations. How do you interpret this story?
The point of these permitting process building codes is basically we've agreed that we don't want to have a terrible fire like there was in Chicago again, right? So we make a building code and we say everyone builds to this standard, but not everyone does that unless there are code enforcers, right? So we basically have this building department and zoning department that is enforcing the code. And then you have building inspectors that are coming out after the permitting process to make sure things are being done appropriately. And they're there to protect the consumer, but also the community at large, right, from things being done in a poor way. So I think this homeowner understands that, but a lot of homeowners see the permitting and the inspection process as an obstruction to getting their job done. It makes it more complicated. It makes it more expensive. So I think it's helpful to have the perspective that this is a process that was put in place to really save us money in the long term, even though it might be a little clunky and irritating at times.
What advice do you have for homeowners if they are worried about either whether someone pulled a permit or should they get a permit?
So I'm only going to speak with regards to my experience in New Jersey, which is different from, other places. But I will say contractors in general have this puzzle piece of a certain amount of employees to do a certain amount of work, and you're trying to sort of keep a consistent 40 hours per week per employee. And that might mean reconfiguring things and getting ahead of when the permit comes in, or putting the permit process off to last because it doesn't actually pay the money. So maybe they'll drop that ball. And that's not a good thing, but I think that's what's happening. Like, this company probably had every intention of eventually filing it. They just didn't think the homeowner was going to watch them so closely, and they would sort of circle up with it after. What a homeowner can do is basically just ask to see it. Great, you're starting the work on Tuesday. Just want to make sure someone will be there to show me that the permit's been appropriately pulled before you start. If you keep bumping the start date, once they're there, you sort of have given away your power. So just hold that boundary before you schedule the start of work, saying that, I need to see that the permit is there. I think this other thing the homeowner's getting at, which is very accurate, is the plumbing versus electrical. In New Jersey, you have to be a licensed electrician to pull an electrical permit. You need to be a licensed plumber to pull a plumbing permit. So this might be a plumber who charged $1,000 for the job, say, and if they just do the electrical in-house on the down low, they will take that money and be on to the next job. It'll be quick, easy to schedule. If they bring in an electrician, the electrician maybe charges them $400. So they have to then up their price to the homeowner. Maybe that jeopardizes the likelihood that they're going to close the job, because there's sort of this race to the bottom with consumers looking for 3 bids and picking the cheapest usually. So it's tough to say exactly what's going on, but I think a homeowner like this that's pretty fastidious has already really educated our listening audience to say that usually the consumer has access to an online portal, or can just walk into the municipal building department and say, hey, I hired a contractor. Can you just make sure they're doing the right thing? I'm a little concerned about that. And they're happy to slap a red sticker on the front of your house, no problem at all. That just is fees and better for them. So you can just always just walk into your building department and say, I'm concerned about this. Can you coach me through? Here's the scope of work. And they will gladly tell you whether that person's in the wrong or not. And they're the right person to tell you.
Is there any way to sort of like gut check whether or not your contractor needs to be pulling a permit, and then doing the due diligence to make sure they're doing so?
A lot of municipalities in my area actually have a one sheet that's right up at the front that'll say, this is what requires a permit, this is what doesn't. So for example, some towns in New Jersey don't require a permit for low voltage lighting. So if you're doing landscape lighting and it's 12 volts or less, you can just go ahead and do it. Whereas other municipalities say this must be done by a licensed electrician. Where it gets messy is New Jersey has a law, for example, that says if you're doing a direct replacement bathroom, you don't need a permit. And a direct replacement would be, I'm removing the toilet, I'm removing the vanity, and I'm putting them back in the same place, bolting them to the same plumbing. That is different from, I'm removing the vanity, I'm removing the toilet, I am removing the floor, I am replumbing the floor, and I'm putting the toilet in basically the same spot. That's different. And it's a gray area where a contractor will say, see, it says a direct replacement, you don't need a permit. And that just means you've saved the customer some money, you've avoided 7 inspections that are going to make your life difficult. So that's really where it can be helpful to just get a little bit more detailed and say, well, let me see what the code says. Or ask the municipal building department, because that's something in New Jersey that's being misinterpreted in favor of the contractor and the homeowner sometimes, because we'll have homeowners push back on us sometime, like, we're doing railings on a deck, but it says we don't need it for a deck. Yeah, but we need it for the railings. No, you don't. And we're saying, well, if you interpret the code this way, you do need it. So we're not comfortable doing the job without it, just because we don't want to sort of have our truck sitting in front of a house with a big red sticker on it. It
Of course.
doesn't really look great, right?
So with that in mind, then, how do you feel when a customer asks if permits are really necessary?
I don't recommend that, because you need to manage liability with these things. A house could burn down 10 years from now and be tracked back to something you did. If you followed the rules, you're covered, you're safe, right? And whenever you buy a house, you can just search all the permits that have been pulled. So as a homeowner, if you're going to sell your house and you have a new water heater in addition, you bought it as a 2-bathroom, but now it's a 3-bathroom. In certain municipalities in New Jersey, they will make you rip that bathroom out.
Wow.
And not only rip the bathroom out, but rip the plumbing out and cap it back at the T's to make sure that you could not sell that house. So there are real ramifications to not pulling permits.
I think the scariest part for me whenever we think about permitting, zoning, all of those things, is when there comes an exchange of houses and someone is going to check to make sure that all of those permits were pulled for the work that was done, the changes that are seen. And, trying to rectify that after the fact seems so scary to me, to try to figure that out.
Yeah, it could be very expensive.
Thanks, Zach. We appreciate your expertise as always.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
If you have a question about your home or how to hire for your next project, call our hotline at 877-864-7460. That's 877-864-7460. And now, it's time for one last thing, my favorite tool.
Hey Jen, it's Jen Nawada, landscape contractor on This Old House. And I just wanted to talk about one of my favorite tools today. I call it a tree hook. Some people call it a T-bar. Starting from the top, there's a cylindrical tube that's attached to a 24-inch rod that's perpendicular to it, making the letter T. And at the bottom, it curves and it has a little sharp hook about 2 inches long. And this will allow you to hook onto a wire basket. We use this a lot when we're unloading trees from a truck. You could pull it from the back of the truck without breaking your back. You could pull it across the yard. It's great. Just that T handle at the top, it makes it all doable. And anything that needs a little more torque or just needs a little more leverage, this is your tool to do that.
We'll see you next week on This Old House Radio Hour. Our show is distributed by and co-produced by LAist Studios and APM, American Public Media. This Old House Radio Hour was created and produced by Ember 20. Listen to new episodes of the podcast every Tuesday on your app of choice. You can follow This Old House on all the socials at This Old House, all one word. We'll see you next week.